Hello everyone, my name is Ankit Jain and I welcome you all to my channel Tech Journey with Ankit. This is part 2 of our interview preparation series which is completely based on the integration. Again, as I mentioned in the part 1, I am preparing this series based on the questions that you have only shared with me folks over the LinkedIn, Telegram as well as on the YouTube comments. I have accumulated all those questions and then preparing a video so that it can help you to prepare for your interview. So we can get started for the today's videos. Again, in case you folks like to connect with me, you can definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also connect with me on the LinkedIn and also join the Telegram channel where I put the regular updates about my videos too. So the first question that we will be discussing today, when the below error is encountered and how to solve this error. In case you folks are already working on the triggers or on the Apex, very frequently you folks might have seen this error. But again, those who are freshers and they have not encountered this error, I do appreciate if you go and try this out once. So this error again is very frequently occurred error when we perform the integration. The error here is callout from the triggers are currently not supported. Again, this issue generally occur whenever the developers try to make the synchronous callouts from the trigger. It is not possible to make the synchronous callout from the trigger, and the way we can solve this error is by invoking the call out either by using the future methods or by using the queuable apex. So you have to make sure that in your trigger, from your trigger, if you have to make a call out to the external service, here you have to use the asynchronous apex where you'll be putting at the rate future. And the key part here is to make the call out. You have to use the call out is equal to true. If you are not putting the call out is equal to true, again, you cannot make the call outs from the future method. And in this block, you can go and write down this code. This method definitely can be invoked from the triggers. Okay. The next question that we'll be discussing here is again a more real-time question. You have committed some work, but which is pending. Please commit or roll back before calling out. Very frequently occurred error when we worked on the integrations as well as the Apex. Again, this error is typically encountered whenever we are first performing the DML operations and then the call out is made in the same transaction. So it is not even possible that you first go and perform the DML operations and then do the callouts. The reason it is not possible because your callout operations are not committed, and without the operations are not committed, you cannot make the callouts to the external service. So how you can avoid this error? Either there are different ways to do it, but one of the easiest way here is you can go and shift your DML operations after the callouts. So first perform all the callouts to the external services and then perform the DML operation. If you do that, this error will not come. Another approach, again, you can also go for the asynchronous path approach as well. But sometimes I personally encountered few errors when I go for the asynchronous path. So the recommended way to handle this kind of an error where where the error states at uncommitted work pending is to shift the DML operations after the callouts operation. Now the next interview question here will be again a more real-time question that callouts from the schedule apex is not supported, right? Again, one of the limitation or you can say one of the key point that you have to remember here is in case you are preparing the schedulable apex, you cannot make a call out from the right. In case your apex class it is implementing the database dot schedulable interface, call out from those apex classes are not possible. Again, how to solve that error? To solve that error, what you can do here is in any other asynchronous approach, for example, your queuable apex or the future method or the batch apex, you go and write down your call out logic. And from the schedulable apex, you can go and invoke that particular method where the call out is made, but you cannot directly write down your callout logic in a class which is implementing the schedulable interface. Salesforce does not allow you to do that. But as I said, there is a way to handle this error as well. Now, another error that you very frequently get here is timeout error on a callout to the third party REST API. Right? Whenever you are taking more than default time to get the response from the third party API. Basically, Salesforce transaction got errored out or Salesforce callout got errored out. So the default timeout, again, these are the few limits that you have to always remember whenever you are working on the integrations as well. The default timeout is 10 seconds. If the callout is taking more than 10 seconds, then it will automatically fail out, right? How you can handle that error? Again, the call out that I mentioned here, it's a default timeout, but Apex codes allow you to configure that timeout here. So the minimum value that you can specify for the call out is 1 millisecond, and the maximum value that you can specify here is the 120 seconds. If the third party service to which you are making an API call, it is taking good amount of time, you can go and set your own timeout here as well. Okay, again, do remember that here I am putting the 120 seconds, but whenever you are setting up the timeout, you have to always set up the timeouts in milliseconds. Okay, now the next question here is, what is external ID and what all the key considerations that you should be remembering about the external ID. If you folks are creating any fields inside the object, you guys might have observed that there is a one checkbox during the field creation, that is the external ID, right? So external ID in Salesforce, again, it's an any custom field that you will be creating on either the standard object or the custom object. But the part here is the attribute, that is the external ID attribute must be checked. The meaning that in case you are checking this external ID attribute, right, then the unique record identifiers from the external system will be saved into that field. Again, the recommendation here is whenever you are checking the external ID field, also check the unique attribute as well. If you are making checking the unique attribute as well as the external ID attribute, then whatever the external identity record identifiers that you are storing from the external system, right, it will be marked into a Salesforce. Again, for example, let's say you are bringing the Oracle data into the Salesforce and you have to store the Oracle key identifiers into the Salesforce, right? You will be marked them as an external ID. There are few limitations that you have to keep in mind whenever you are using the external ID. First one here is an object can have maximum 25 external IDs. You cannot have more than 25 external and the unique ID. Next one here is custom fields marked as an unique also count against those IDs as well. Okay, if you are either marking them as a unique or you are marking them as an external ID, it's an accumulated limit of 25. Another point about the external ID that you can also answer in your interview here is, for all the data types, external IDs are not supported. It is supported only for the limited data types like an auto number, email, number, or text. For example, you cannot make any other data types like pick list or the checkbox as the external ID. Only these data types are supported for the external ID. Next question, what is Salesforce Connect? This question is very frequently asked to the experienced professional. I have published a complete detailed playlist on the Salesforce Connect. So in case you folks wants to explore the Salesforce Connect in more detail, do check out that channel. I will also put the link in the video description as well. Right. So what is Salesforce Connect? As I said, very important topic in Salesforce. It's an integration service which enables the users from the Salesforce application to access the data from the external system. And the key point here is without leaving the Salesforce native environment. For example, there are two systems. One is Salesforce and another is SAP, right? And you want to access the SAP data into the Salesforce without leaving the Salesforce, without duplicating the SAP data into the Salesforce. You can take the help of the Salesforce Connect. Very powerful tool because it does not allow you to copy the data into your organization, right? And the data, it can be accessed on demand and in real time. So more real time data that you will get. Moreover, these tools also allow you to modify that data from the Salesforce as well. For that, there's a writable object permission needs to be enabled on the Salesforce Connect. whenever you are creating the external data source configuration, that time you have to do that. I talked about this Salesforce Connect external data sources in very detailed in my Salesforce Connect playlist. So please check that out if you want to explore it more. Again, if you recall in the first part, we discussed about the different patterns of the Salesforce, which I highlighted. Very, very important to understand because it is one of the common question that you will definitely encounter whenever you are going for the interviews. So in case you didn't check that, check out the first part, make sure that you check out that part as well. That time I highlighted the different patterns of an integration. So here the Salesforce Connect do follow the data virtualization pattern. And what makes the Salesforce Connect kind of a favorite option for the Salesforce developers here is it is a declarative approach. So you don't have to write down a single line of a code whenever you are using the Salesforce Connect. Now, another question which can be a follow-up question after you answer the first question here is which Salesforce Connect adapters? Because the Salesforce Connect, under that there are lots of adapters which are available. Connect in between the external systems and to the Salesforce. However, to connect to the Salesforce, Salesforce have provided one out of the box adapter in case you want to connect the two different Salesforce systems using the Salesforce Connect. So here they are asking the name of the Salesforce Connect adapter. The name of the Salesforce Connect adapter here is the cross org adapter. This adapter is used to connect the other Salesforce org. With the cross-org adapter, Salesforce Connect using the Lightning Platform REST API calls. So at the background, they are using here the Platform REST API calls to access the records from the other Salesforce org. Next question, which again a very important question. Again, this question can also be asked if you are an admin as well, right? So what is external object and what all the different types of relationships which are available in the external objects? Again, just to summarize, external objects are very similar to the custom object, but external object record data is stored outside your Salesforce organization. Previously, we discussed, right? With the help of Salesforce Connect, we can bring the objects inside the Salesforce. So the objects that we are bringing from the external system into the Salesforce, basically they are referred as an external object. Also, we talked in more detail in my Salesforce Connect playlist related to this. We have created the external objects as well, right? And we have also set up the relationships too. Again, the quick way to identify the external object here is your external objects are always suffixed with underscore underscore x, right? Where x is in the lowercase and followed and prefixed by the two underscores. So for example, if my external object name here is order info, and if I am bringing that external object into the Salesforce, it is referred as order info underscore underscore x. It is referred as order info underscore underscore x. Next one, what all the different types of relationships which are available here? So there are two types of relationships which are available and that comes with the external object. First is the external lookup relationship and another one here is the indirect lookup relationship. External lookup relationship, again, it is useful whenever you want to set up the relationship between the two external objects. For example, you are bringing up the order and the order info, these two external objects from the third party system, and you want to set up the relationships in between them, then you will go for the external lookup. The next one here we do have the indirect lookup. Indirect lookup is helpful whenever you want to set up the relationship between the Salesforce object as well as the external object. Right? Salesforce object can either be a standard object or a custom object, and in between the Salesforce, either the standard or the custom object and the external object, you want to set up the relationship. For example, you are bringing up the order info details from the third party system and you want to show that order info with respect to the Salesforce standard object like account. Then you will be creating the indirect lookup relationship in that scenario, but make sure that in whenever you have to create the any indirect lookup relationship, it must be based on the unique key, and that's where your concept of external id will come into the picture. The next question, Again, this is one of the favorite questions from the interviewer from last 1 year after the Salesforce have issued few of the integration licenses for free, right? So the question here is, what is Salesforce integration user license? Right, so the Salesforce integration user license, again, this license generally have only one permission, that is the grant API only access. This license is typically designed by the Salesforce for system to system integration. This license is not should not be used, right? Again, in case you are using it, then it's going to be the anti-pattern. But this license can't be used for the human users. It can only be used for the system to system integration. Right? The recommendation from the Salesforce here is, for every system to system integration, you should have the Salesforce integration user license. And this integration license should only have the API only access, so that they cannot make any unwanted changes into your org. This license will grant a user access to the Salesforce data and features, and the key point here is, only through an API they can go and access the user details and the Salesforce data, right? So the users with the Salesforce integration user license cannot log in inside the Salesforce, cannot access the UI. They can only perform the operations using an API. The next question here will be, what is bulk API? In what scenarios as a developer you should go and choose the bulk API for the Salesforce integration? Again, generally we take this number. Again, it's not mandate, it's completely up to you. But personally, I believe that if there are more than 2000 records on which you have to perform the operation, then it's a good candidate for the bulk API. So bulk APIs are typically used whenever you have to perform the mass data operations on the large set of data, right? That data can stands in between thousands to millions as well. You can perform the operations with quite ease. It's efficient for loading and deleting the large amount of record. And the key part here is, it works asynchronously. The rest of the data platform APIs that we discussed in the part one as well, like the REST APIs and the SOAP APIs, they work synchronously, right? But what makes the bulk API different here is, bulk API process the large volume of records asynchronously. The maximum number of records uploaded, again, there are few governor limits that you should keep in mind whenever you work on the bulk API, right? The maximum number of records that you can upload in 24 hours is 150 million, and the number of batches that can be invoked perform the bulk API operation in 24 hours is 15,000. So these are the ruling limits. These limits work in with the 24 hours. So in 24 hours, the maximum number of operations, the maximum number of records on which you can perform the operation is 150 million, and the maximum number of batches on which you can perform the operations is 15,000. The next one here is, how to make the callouts from the future method. Although I already showed you in the first slide itself, but I have put that dedicated slide because in case you are a newbie into the Salesforce, or you are having around 2 years of experience, definitely you can come across this question, that how you can make the callouts from the future method. Make the call out from the future method, one extra parameter is required, that is the call out is equal to true. If you go and specify that parameter, it indicates that you have to perform the call outs from the future method. And how to specify that? Here you will be putting @future followed by the call out is equal to, right? You will be putting @future call out is equal to. This is how you will go and make the call outs from the future method. Again, if you are not specifying the call out is equal to true and try to make the call outs, you can expect call out exception from the Salesforce. Similarly, how you can make the call outs from the queuables or the batch apex as well. For the future method, just now we discussed, there are different forms of the queuable, there are different forms of the asynchronous apex, like the queuable apex or the batch apex. If you have to make the call outs, if you have to integrate the other party, then you have to implement one additional interface for both queuable as well as the batchable interface. in that interface here is database dot allow callout. Right, you have to make sure that you are implementing this interface. If you have to make the callouts either from the queuable apex or from the batch apex. Again, in case you are missing to implement this interface, you will encounter system.callout exceptions from the Salesforce. So we discussed about all asynchronous method. First one is the future method, where you have to specify the callout is equal to true. For the queuable and the batch apex, you have to go and implement the interface database.allow callouts. From the schedulable apex, callout is not even possible. Now, the next question here will be, what is outbound message in Salesforce? In the old days, we use this outbound message functionality very heavily. Still, there are many systems which do use the outbound message to perform the integration. So again, one of the question that you can encounter definitely here is, what is an outbound message in Salesforce? So outbound message is an action basically that sends the data in the SOAP format. The key part about the outbound message here is it will send the data into the SOAP format to the external servers. Again, the SOAP format, it do support only the XML. So data will go from the Salesforce into the external system into the SOAP format. So it supports the SOAP API. Next point here is outbound messaging uses the notification call. This is the method that will be called to send the SOAP messages to the designated endpoint. Outbound messaging uses the notification call to send the SOAP messages to the designated endpoint. Right now, what makes the outbound message unique here is the guaranteed delivery of the message. So for example, in case you are sending the message to the third party system and that third party system is not available, Salesforce will have the retry mechanism in set. So unless and until the message is not delivered in the next 24 hours after the specific interval, Salesforce will again and again try to send that message. Okay, that makes the outbound message more powerful. Again, one key part that you can also answer during the interview here is, outbound message always expect the response in the specific format. In case the response is not coming up or the acknowledgement is not coming up in the specific format, outbound message will retry again and again. Okay, there are few questions that I want folks you to try in the comment section, and do let me know the answers in the comment section as well. Right? So the first question here will be, which REST API method will be used to insert the record into the Salesforce? Or in case you have to insert the record into the external system, which REST API methods will be used? In the first part, I asked the different questions, what all the different REST API methods. Again, I got good amount of response on those questions as well. I'm expecting you folks will be answering these questions too. Another question, which is again a very common question that is asked to the freshers, what is the difference between the authentication as well as the authorization? Again, the difference here is very important to understand, because that is when you will be deciding whether you want to go for the authentication approach or the authorization approach. So do let me know in the comment section your understanding about the authentication as well as the authorization. And the last question here will be, which API is more secured, REST API or the SOAP API? I have covered this question in very detail in the part 1. In case you folks already watched the part 1, do let me know the answer for this again in the comment section too. Okay, so I'm expecting the answers from you folks in the comment section. In case any correction is required, I will definitely let you know. That's all I do have, folks, for the today's session. I hope you folks found the today's learning helpful, and it will definitely help you in your interview preparation as well. Again, I do wish best of luck for your interview preparation. Have a good journey ahead.